We look at how urban environments affect creeks. This one, next Monday, we go to the area around UCSB and we visit habitat restoration projects, which is part of this unit. I love this field trip. I've been doing it for many years. Both of my field trips, you don't have to go. But they're like curricular and they're nice, and we just walk around in like nice places where you just want to be outside. And we never go through a door into any indoor environment, and it's just like a nice way to spend a day walking around Toledo. I cannot have a planned water activity. But we do have lunch at the beach. You bring a picnic, and we get like 45 minutes or so to like sit around on the sand and eat lunch. And as long as there's at least 1 or 2 lifeguards present, I allow students to frolic in the surf. Anybody know if we have any lifeguards present next Monday?
Jam.
There you go. So we will have a lifeguard present, which means during our lunch break, if you wanted to dabble in the surf, it's probably okay. Again, like a planned water activity. But I am planning to have a significant period for having a lunch picnic at the beach. Oh wait, she is here. How marked you absent? Maria. Like this? Let's pass it back. Everybody, please look at the field trip packet. Please look at the field trip packet. When you look at that field trip packet, you'll notice that the first page is in Spanish. The exact same content is on the back side in English. Then look at the next page. You'll see your excused periods 1 through 5. And students, that paper is your bus ticket. You literally will have to hand that over to me and my student aides as you step onto the bus. You want to go on Monday?
Sure.
Just make sure you take it back. You will hand that to me and my aides as you get on the bus. So without that excuse of without the teachers excusing you, no go. And then the very last page, the last page is a waiver, so that you'd be on the airport property where we look at stuff. Now, please go to the first page again, and you'll see there's little tiny numbered arrows on the side. On both the English and Spanish side, there's a little arrow that says number 1 and a little arrow that says number 2. Now, just so you understand, on field trips, there's like, I won't bore you with the details, but I have to make a list of everybody who gets excused. And then the school has to make sure that all those kids are excused. Just so you know, if you don't fill out numbers 1 and 2, I won't excuse you. And if you don't fill out number 3, which is on the next page, so there's number 3 right there, the school won't excuse you. And then look on the next page, see where the arrow says number 4. And there, if you don't fill out number 4, the airport won't let you in. Now,
For when it says teachers okay, you just want a little like signature.
you is right, Jose, yeah. Oh, no, the teacher's okay in the column?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Each teacher's.
That's right, each teacher just excuses that. On mine, for period 2, you can just write the word Jose for the teacher's okay. Put my name in there and I think that's okay. You'll need backpack with water and snack, sun protection, comfortable shoes. Temperatures in Isla Vista go up and down, or sorry, in Goleta Point go up and down. So make sure you have like adequate temperature preparations. That's it. There's food all over campus at UCSB. You're not allowed to stop and buy food. I have to take 2 buses full of kids, like 160 students by myself. It's kind of stressful. We can't afford the time for you to stop and buy food. You're going to walk right past fragrant coffee carts and exotic college cuisine. And you're not allowed to buy food there. I don't care if you have money and if the food's right there. You're not allowed. I'll be really angry. So bring your own food, please. Yeah.
So are we ever gonna like split into groups?
On this field trip? No.
There's just gonna be one giant group.
Yes.
Wow.
And I have to yell really loud to be heard.
Yeah.
Because the kids start to like accordion out. And so we'll talk about this, but like as long as everybody stays together, the field trips are pretty rad. But it is kind of awkward. It takes like 3 green light cycles to cross the street.
Yeah.
And like the bike paths at UCSB are like so treacherous. I've had so many students hit by bikes. Like it's so common. High school kids are seriously like lemmings. They'll see like, here comes the bike, here comes the bike, here comes the bike. Oh wait, you're going, Ike's wait for me! And they're like, boom! Like, so many times. Watch, mark my words. Mark my words.
How many people do you think are going to get hit by bikes?
I put my money on 3. And they're lemmings. It's lemming behavior. Like, the person in the front's like, yeah, I could probably make it. So they go, made it. And then the second person goes, wait for me! And then they'll like just barely squeak by. And then the third person goes, I can't be 4 feet away from you! Ah! And they just run out and bike like. Yeah, you laugh now. It might be you. You might be 11. When you got like huge raspberry and like clothes flip upside down, you won't be laughing. For the wanted poster, some of my students said that there was some amount of confusion. They were like, hey, wait, I don't know what we're doing. So remember, this is due in 2 days. Who has not signed up? Here's all the ones that we've already taken. These are economically impactful. And listen, because I might be repeating yours. So listen carefully. The fire ant, the killer bee, which is not actually a species. Zebra mussels, longhorn beetle, gypsy moth, European starling, Asian carp, the horse, lionfish, nutria, Burmese python, melaleuca, red-tailed boa, ice plant, soybean rust, pigeon, brown tree snake, cane toad, mongoose, silver carp. Uh-oh. Nick got it first. Mackenzie, you can see if Nick is willing to sell you the privilege, but it looks like he beat you to it. The quagga mussel, the fire tree, the Austin, it's emerald ash borer, not boar.
Oh.
Borer.
Borer?
It's a beetle that makes holes.
Okay.
Oh, I wanted a boar. The barred tiger salamander, I still don't believe that, Noah. Apple snail. Bodie, the wild boar is a hybrid of a native boar, and
Does that?
yeah, that's all right. The brown murmurated stink bug. What's that word?
I think it's like marmorated, or I'm not sure.
Murmurated? Murmurated? European green crab, gypsy moth, European rabbit, and kudzu vine.
Second gypsy moth is.
Second, that was gypsy moth again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jake got it. Sorry, Godless. So it sounds like two of you need to find another one. Can't figure out that this list thing didn't help. What's the point of having the list if nobody's actually using the list? Any questions about the wanted poster? It must be handwritten. The drawing must make it identifiable. So get the colors and the patterns and the shape straight. Yeah.
You said like as big as like a piece of printer paper?
Okay, about 11, like that. Anybody else?
Jim Moreland slips.
Maybe in the back, yeah. Here. Yeah.
So do we need to like put down like the economic impacts that?
Yeah, because one of the categories is crimes committed, as in like what they've done, the ecological. So in your case, I also want you to include the economic stuff. Yeah,
Okay.
little story of like Rex the grape harvest. If there are no other questions, I want to finish temperate biomes and then move on to tropical. And we really should be finishing the biomes today, but I think it's going to take all of tomorrow as well. So yesterday we finished talking about the one that we live in, correct? We talked about the chaparral. Yes? So let's do grassland. Yes, Mel? Sure, will you hit the light on your way out? All three were on. Wow. Grassland is the orange stuff. You should know that grassland is the world's breadbasket. This is where we grow our food, and you can see up there, you might recognize the United States. That's where we grow America's food. I was born in the Argentinian orange patch, which is kind of funny because the town where I was born is very, very similar to your like St. Louis, Kansas City sort of stuff. A lot of like brick construction, a lot of like industrial wasteland, a lot of milling, a lot of trains. So orange in this map, bread baskets. And there's a very unique significance of grasslands. The physical environment that makes a grassland is very much the same over and over and over again. Here's the recipe to make a grassland. Get ready. Girls, would it help if I threw hot coffee on your face? Okay, just trying to help. I'm not going to mix my coffee. All right. So on the grassland. Distinct seasons. Like all 4 seasons. But every season is some amount of rain and some amount of sun. And you know that grass grows really fast, right? So because grasslands have that seasonal rain, every season there is rain, every season, there's one type of grass that's growing while the last season is rotting. You get this constant cycle. In the spring, there's one type of grass. Then in the summer, there's a separate grass. Then in the fall, there's a separate grass. So you have this grow, die, mulch, grow, die, mulch, grow, die, mulch. Every 3 months. Grow, die, mulch, grow, die, mulch, grow, die, mulch. So there it is growing, there it is dying, and you can imagine the mulching part. It looks like grassland, but just so you know, it's a succession community. Meaning that every season has its own grass. There's the summer grass and the winter grass, spring grass and fall grass. And you know, like a few gajillion years of compost every 3 months makes pretty good dirt. You know, grass is very fast growing. So grass fixes nutrients really quickly. And then when that grass dies, it just makes like a perfect porous layer of mulch. And then you just add a layer on top in 3 months. So like every 3 months, you're just making the soil a little bit deeper. Just so you know, and everybody must know, this is good dirt. Really good dirt. Imagine an environment where it rains all the, like, in every season it rains. There's sunlight of some amount every single season, and BT dubs, the soil is spectacular. Sunlight, rain, and good dirt. What would that be good for?
Plants.
And that's why this is the world's breadbasket. We grow food there. There was like a famous story, it might be fictional, about this farmer from Pennsylvania who'd grown up in this like really rugged, rocky soil. And when the government was giving away homesteads in the West, he like gets out to someplace in the middle, in the grassland somewhere. And he leaves his wife and children in the wagon and says, kids, I'm going to go out and start digging our outhouse. And so the children go play, and the mom starts setting up like the camp in their new home. And darkness comes around, and the children come back, and they go, hey, Mom, where's Pa? And she goes, holy crap, he went out to dig an outhouse, and he hasn't come back all day. He must have been attacked by bears or wolves or something. So the children and the mom go out and they go, Pa, where are you, Pa? And they look all around and all they see is grass. And they're going, oh, Pa, where are you? Don't leave us, wake up. And the lady's like, what are we going to do? Pa got eaten by bears. Or whatever. Prairie dogs. Pa got eaten by prairie dogs. And they're like, well, I see the pile of dirt. And then like a little pile of dirt comes out. And they go, oh, it's the pile of dirt. And so they go over and they go, hey, Pa. And the guy's like 28 feet deep in the ground going, the topsoil goes on forever! And he just couldn't stop digging because he was so fired up as a farmer to have 30 feet of topsoil. That's like so jackpot. So jackpot. 30 feet of topsoil. Like seriously, many parts of the grassland will like sell shipping containers full of dirt. That's what they do for a living. They just dig it up and ship it other places. Like perfect topsoil. Endless perfect topsoil. Grow, die, grow, die, grow, die, grow, die. We talked about prairie dogs, and prairie dog story was kind of good, but just in case you didn't know it, that's some really good soil. What those prairie dogs are playing in, that's some nice agricultural dirt right there. Top-notch dirt. We're looking rabbit and buffalo. That was today's warm-up. Why would the Western settlers exterminate the buffalo? Yeah?
Buffalo or furry?
Yes, but their fur kind of sucks. Because it's not like a fine, wearable fur. The leather is thick and heavy, and the fur is like raspy and dry. Yeah?
Never mind.
Yeah?
Well, when we were learning about the history, there was like an important source for the Native Americans and to track the natives off the land.
Exactly. I'm so glad that your class taught you that. Yes. This was their picture?
Yeah.
Who stole my picture? Who's your teacher?
Doctor. Doctor. Sorry.
Dr. Who?
It looks like
I don't know who this person is.
He's like a city college teacher. Grades really hard.
New teacher, grades really hard. I like it. I like it. And I haven't heard of any of our other history teachers teaching this lesson, so I'm kind of excited. And he showed you that picture. I like this guy. Get over it, you wimps. You want people not to push you. Leave me alone. I'm perfect how I am. I just want to clear my thunder. Bunch of wimps. What do you think academia is supposed to be for? It's supposed to grade you hard. Push you harder. Because he cares about you. That's a good thing. Oh, whatever. Just let him go. That's not a teacher who cares. All right. As your other teacher has apparently told you already, we used to pay people to just shoot them. Just prove to me that you killed one. Because we wanted to starve, I believe it was the Apaches, maybe? Anybody want to correct me on that? I'm kind of racist and I don't know my details. I'm an American, I don't have to know. That's why I became a citizen of this country. So I don't have to know about other countries anymore. I can hang up my knowledge hat. Anybody know? Was it the Apaches? I think it was the Apaches. Anyway, our westward expansion was kind of using up all of their land and stuff, and they were like bummed that we were taking all of their land and stuff. And so we would like send our soldiers and whatnot, and we had like the railroads and firearms, and you would think that we would be undefeatable because, you know, America. And apparently we were quite defeatable. Apparently, like, homemade bows and arrows on stolen horses bareback is all it took to cripple America. And I guess, like, to some degree, we had it somewhat easy with so many native groups that were relatively inexperienced in the art of war. But if I know my story straight, and somebody here feel free to correct me if I'm getting it wrong, but the way I've heard this is that the Apache were actually like pretty darn good at killing humans. And the Apaches had all these horses, which I believe they had stolen from the Spanish days. And so the Apache didn't grow up on horses, but they all got into the horse thing when the Spaniards came through. And so when we were challenging Spain for some lands and purchasing some from Spain and excluding Spain, the Apaches had now gained the advantage of the horse. And you take people who grow up shooting bows and arrows and you put them on horseback, and somehow that just outkilled our soldiers. And so rather than beat them in armed battle, we just starved them. And you can imagine, that's actually a lot of buffalo in that picture. Did you guys get any interesting facts that I could share with my other classes from your Dr. Huff? Anybody paying attention to what he was saying about the buffalo thing?
Yeah, I don't remember.
You just don't remember. Beautiful.
Well, you said
I can see that he grades very difficult, yeah.
because you said that the Western expansion.
That's what they always said about it. And then they like killed all of them for the Indians.
Okay, whatever. Just so you know, because this is the world's best farmland, there's almost none that's intact. Very little, if any, that's intact. And you can probably bet that sometime soon, whatever is left will be further developed, because obviously we need it for food. Next comes the tropical rainforest. And tropical rainforest is the dark green stuff here. You can see we have a bunch in the Americas, a little bit in the middle of Africa, and a little bit in Asia, equatorial Asia. I'm sure you've all heard quite a bit about what the tropical rainforest is like. A, it's tropical, B, it's rainy. But there's one last thing I want to remind you of. Look, at the poles, we talked about extreme seasonality, right? But sometimes you're facing away from the sun, and sometimes you're facing at the sun, so even as the planet rotates in a day, you either get no sunlight or nonstop sunlight, right? Poles. Well, the equator is the polar opposite of that, the exact opposite of that. At the equator, every single day is 12 hours long exactly. There is no seasonal variation in day length. Everybody understand that? That's why they call it the equator. Because they're at the midpoint of the circle, it doesn't matter where you are. Like right there, that's going to be 12 hours of sunlight. And right there, that's going to be 12 hours of sunlight. And right there, that's going to be 12 hours of sunlight. Because it's like the half point of the circle, so you can do the math someday, and the two halves line up. 12 hours no matter what. Equator. You know you can find the equator with a really nice watch? All you got to do is know that the days are exactly 12 hours every day, and you know you're on the equator. You can use your stopwatch to find the direction that has less variation in days. So if you walk and the days just got more and more different, you're going the wrong direction. And you use your watch and that'll take you to the equator, anywhere you are on the planet. 12 hours. And so some parts of this tropical world, like much of the stuff along the equator, unless you are in some quirky landmass loophole, 12 hours a day means the same amount of sunlight. Same amount of sunlight means the same amount of temperature. Same temperature means consistent weather. And a whole lot of evaporation means rainforest. Every day is the same length, the same temperature, and the same amount of rain. Which is basically what every greenhouse is trying to do. This is the ideal for plant growth. You can't make happier plants than this. The happiest plants. Light is really the only thing that limits growth. And so plants have specialized to be low light, medium light, high light, or full light. Different layers of the rainforest. With these conditions, as long as you've got a nutrient, you can grow. So the soil has been completely sapped. Nothing left in the ground. Do you guys realize that tropical rainforest has the world's worst soil quality? Because not a single nutrient is ever left in the ground. Think about it. It's like a room full of starving people, and you drop like a cooked turkey. People are going to be like, oh yeah, and that thing's going to be gone in like no time. Nutrients don't survive in the soil. A, they get washed away, and B, they get soaked up right away, that minute. So you have a lot of breaking up into niches. Remember what we said, the two things that cause diversity, productivity and climate stability, aka tropical rainforest and tropical rainforest cause diversity? These are some of the most diverse terrestrial environments on Earth. They are the most diverse terrestrial environments on Earth. And don't forget, nothing's left around in the soil. Look at the density. Look at this. Yeah.
How do new plants grow?
Well, they got to find a little pocket of goodness. Most of these seeds, like, I don't know if you've heard, but the tropics, a lot of like tropical fruit. Have you heard of this like tropical fruit thing? Like pretty much anywhere you are on the planet, there's some cool exotic tropical fruit there. That's because most of the tropical seeds are dispersed by animals, and they're deposited in poop. And that's a really good hint. You can imagine that plants who can get their seed into an animal will spread their seed in a little packet of nutrient head start. that will be dispersed and probably deposited in a place where that animal is hiding, because in the tropics there's so much productivity, there's a lot of predators too. So those animals will often deposit their poop in more secret nutrient stashes than an animal in the grasslands is going to drop it on the go. But yeah, I mean, seed starting is no easy task here, and you don't really get a lot of turnover of biomass. A lot of these plants will have unsuccessful reproduction, and they just keep trying over and over and over again. Instead of having like one time of year where they'll drop fruit all 12 months.
So it's like, is it like really like all the trees and stuff are probably pretty old? Huh?
In many cases, yeah. And there's layers, you know. Like trees themselves tend to be really slow growing because there's not like a huge volume of nutrient availability. They get really hard, mineralized, dense wood. And as a plant community, yeah, there's probably a lot of really old stuff laying around with like a skin of younger stuff that's always turning on top. So you'll notice that all the trees are covered up in other plant life. Those probably have a lot more turnover because those are being eaten by herbivores and they're getting knocked off the trees and so on. Look at the density of life there. I mean, I don't even know how many you could identify if you took the time. But I see like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, probably more than 20 different plant varieties in that low resolution photo. You can just tell by the shape of the plant, the shape of the leaves. That's pretty intense, right? Like, you go to the Chaparral, and that's probably how many species we have between Monterey and San Diego. There's an equal number of those species here. Look at that density. Now, because nutrients are unavailable, you would think like, oh, that's kind of gnarly, like it's probably a maxed out environment. But let me remind you, tons of productivity. You've got the warmth, you've got the sunlight, and you've got the water. So plants can grow. And the climate's always the same, so you can specialize. So for example, there's this one tree, it's a fig, so it has like a fruit, like we were just talking about. It gets dispersed by birds. And the birds usually poop up in trees, and so that poop will land on a branch. Rain washes the seed into the crotch where a branch meets a tree. And probably in that little nook, there's some little rotting vegetation. You could imagine a little bit of soil buildup. So check this out. The fig sprouts there in that moist, nutrient-rich loam in the branch of a tree. Drops these little fibrous hair roots, which basically follow the water down the trunk. Like every droplet of rain will kind of like pull those roots down toward the ground. Does that make sense to everybody? So like the roots will follow the rivulets of water down to the ground. When those roots touch the soil, they start to drink water from the ground, send that all the way up the tree to the little plant, and that little plant starts to make leaves, and when it gets sunlight, it starts dropping more and more roots. So you can see, like, over the course of a year, like 2 little hair fibers, then like 15 that are the size of spaghetti, then like 100 that are the size of like linguine. And over a few years, those roots start to build like a netting around the original tree. And as they grow, they'll gradually fill in and strangle the tree on the inside. 10 years later, you have a tubular strangler fig with a dead tree on the inside that's rotting. Strangler figs capture and digest other trees as a specialization to competition for nutrients. You got to admit, that's pretty rad, right? So they like will drink up the tree from inside. And by the way, there's been strangler figs for a long time. So there are other species of plants that have roots that are designed to drill holes through the wood of strangler fig to get at that plug of fertilizer on the inside. So not only is strangler fig a parasitic tree, but there are plants that parasitize the strangler fig itself. I love the tropics. Like, this plant diversity just drives me nuts. I'm sorry if I'm boring you. Hold on. Anybody notice the digital edit of this photo? Something doesn't belong there.
Moss is on the entire part of the tree.
Right there. That's not a real monkey. Me either. I had that picture of my slideshow for like 5 years. And one of my kids was like, wait, what kind of monkey is that? I'm like, there's no monkey there. Imagine all that water everywhere. Look at the layers of life. You don't necessarily have to know these terms, but the concept is important. Remember, competition hurts everybody. So if a plant can specialize on living in the shade, there's nobody to compete with, and it'll do a better job. And if a plant can specialize on a really tall, spindly trunk so it can reach the sunlight above the other trees, then there's no competition there. It'll do better. So in stable environments, because competition is so expensive, you specialize and look at those specializations, all these different layers. So there are herbivores and predators at each of these different layers. There's animals that hunt up at the top of the trees and animals that hunt at the bottom of the trees. Cool, exotic, interesting stuff. And one thing I need everybody to know about the tropics, everybody hears about tropical deforestation, but let's get our facts straight, that's not for the trees. Logging is probably the rarest purpose of deforestation in the tropics. You should know this. You may want to write this down. It's not really the logging. No, tropical trees kind of suck. There will be a few really exotic ones, so yes, it happens, like mahogany. Anybody heard of rosewood? Get a really nice rosewood guitar or something? Like, holy crap. Rosewood, that's a tropical hardwood. But we're talking like one tree every 10 square miles. That's not logging industry, that's salvage logging. Most of this deforestation is just to grow cheap food. Really cheap, like animal feed, like soybeans to feed cows and chickens, like corn, just commodity grade food. FYI, you probably don't eat this food. Almost all of it is grown for animals. And the animals that grow here are the cheapest meat on the planet. Keep in mind, the soil is really bad, so how do they grow food?
Tons of like fertilizer and pesticides and stuff.
Do they bring in soil from the grasslands?
They burn the forest. Remember that ashes recycle nutrients, right? We talked about that in the chaparral. That's like a secret to a fire renewal community. So slash and burn agriculture. It's slash, like you cut it all down, burn, like you light it on fire. And agriculture means you drive the rototiller through the ashes, mix them into the soil, and then you plant your seeds and let the rain handle the rest. You only get like 1 or 2 years of growth season out of that. And then the nutrients are used up and the rain has washed away all the stuff and you're back to sand, so you move on. Rotational slash and burn. This is the cheapest foods on the world market. Because the ground is practically free, it has very little value otherwise, it's a very dangerous and remote activity. Okay, I have a little semi-biome that's not much of a biome that I'm not even going to talk about really. You should know it's got a lot of names. I'm going to switch the slide in like 10 seconds. Know those names. Know those names. Seasonal forest, monsoon forest, and tropical dry forest. And that's over here in the photograph where the green meets the pink. a salmon color, I guess. Where the green meets the pink. These are seasonal rainforest. So you don't have that kind of rain all around the clock. Because of where these are on the continent, there's more influence by like global oceanic seasonality, I don't know. So these have a dry spell and a wet spell. When it's wet, it's like really crazy hella wet. And then when it's dry, it's like a desert because you're talking tropics and it's really, truly bone dry. There's really not much else to say about them. Just so you know, a lot of people don't think this is a biome. It's like the Mediterranean, you know, like our part, like Chaparral. Extended dry, brief, very wet. Extended dry and brief, very wet. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say about it. A little bit of ranching and farming here, but it's kind of remote. Again, slash and burn style agriculture, cheap food. Next, we do the savannah, which you've probably heard about. This is where people go to do like safaris and whatnot. Imagine grassland, but in the tropics. It's the pink in this photograph. Pink in this photograph. It's the pink here. And I think most of you know what to expect, like the savannah. Like you guys have seen documentaries with like cheetahs and lions and elephants and giraffes and stuff. That's what we're talking about. You get like 1 or 2 wet spells, but we're talking tropics. So by wet spell, I don't mean like it's raining in Kansas. I mean like it's been raining, like somebody's just hitting you with a fire hose for like 2 weeks. That's a monsoon. Have you all seen that movie Monsoon Wedding? What is it called, Monsoon Wedding? Like a famous Indian movie about like, wedding season. I forget what it's called. I hope I had the right name. Anyway, highly productive, and this is where those big charismatic animals are, like the zebras and the elephants and the cheetahs. So, some stuff about the savannah. First of all, that seasonality makes it really harsh. You know, like 4 or 5 months with no rain, that's early. Because you're in the tropics, so we're talking like 105-degree highs every day. This is like even gnarlier than Santa Barbara dry spell because of the heat. It's not a really nice place to live. Humans don't do much there. You can't really grow food there because it's too much dry for growing food, followed by too much wet for growing food. So there's pretty minimal impact, except, does anybody know the one big impact that's like personified by this animal? Poaching. A lot of my students are really surprised to hear this. I have an update for you. Here's a news flash from the world of environmental science. The era of the ivory trade was basically over in the 1970s when we passed the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. There's been a global ban on ivory since roughly the time that I've been alive. So globally, ivory has been in decline until, guess what, the last 5 years. The most deadly years for elephants were probably 2012 and 2013. 2014 is lined up to be the deadliest elephant year ever. And I don't know if that surprises you, but it really shocks me. Like modern global agreements and people around the world starting to care more about environmental issues. How can it be that we still can't protect these elephants? It's not like they're small. You know, globally, everybody's really touched by this because elephants are so, like, similar to us. Do you guys realize that they keep their children around their family unit until they're roughly teenagers? They play as a family, they travel together, they clean each other. And you know something that really breaks people's hearts? They mourn their dead. Like if somebody shoots an elephant, all of his homies will stop eating for a while, and they get depressed and they play less, and they sleep less, and they'll stay with the dead body, and they'll visit the graveyard, so to speak. When that group of elephants migrates away, they'll come back 5 years later and they'll go back to that same spot and they'll clean the bones of their dead. Is that not heartbreaking? I like seriously want to cry when I think about this. It's like, oh my God, how can we kill these things to make stupid effing keychains like out of their teeth? How savage are we? Like we don't even eat them. Like, okay, fine, if you're going to eat something, okay, everybody eats something. But we just shoot them to make stupid crap. Oh, well, I've got chess pieces. I'm so special. I mean, imagine if we made, like, keychains out of the teeth of human children. Like, wouldn't that be the most atrocious thing? Like, is that not the scariest horror movie? And like, here we are, like 2013, modern era. 2014 will probably be the worst year for killing elephants globally. You know the problem? These things live in the poorest parts of the planet.
When is the wanted posters due? My teacher wants to know.
Thursday.
Thursday. You wrote due 11/19 on here. So November 19th.
Wait. 11/19 or 10/9?
You wrote 11/19.
Oh, dude, I'm the worst human.
And then it's like, oh, you got the month to work with. No, it's Thursday.
Oh, I'm sorry. I probably told What's Your Face the wrong date, too. Yeah, that thing about poverty, the places in the world that have the elephants. Think about this. You could be, if you're lucky, a security guard for one of these elephant preserves and work for 200 years for the price you'd get for shooting one elephant. What would you do? You go to the security guard and go, bro, you can retire right now and your children won't have to work and neither will your grandchildren. Just get me that. And like, their value is just far greater than the economic potential of the communities where they live. It's like the most like tragic tragedy of the commons right there. You tell the security guard, like, hey, you know, if you don't shoot it, I want to go talk to the other security guard and I'll bet you he'll shoot it. It's like the most tragic tragedy of the commons. It's like stereotypic, perfect example. Anyway. Humans barely ever go there. Largely intact. If we could figure out the irrigation, we might farm there. But one of the only things that we're doing there is we're just killing all the neat stuff. And that's true of all the savannas, by the way. This is also true in the other savannas. It's just that Africa has the biggest one. Biggest savanna. Okay, we can do deserts tomorrow. I'm finished.